sitting on a porch several years ago. On a lazy Saturday afternoon, Annie asked me if I would say some words at her funeral on her behalf. And I said yes, not realizing how very difficult that would be. But today I'm going to share the thoughts that she had on her heart. The message is mine, but the thoughts are hers. And I hope to do this with grace and decorum and a clear spirit of understanding the things that she wanted you to remember after she was gone. Every one of us in this room had a unique relationship with Lil Annie. I'm sorry I didn't know you before, Jeannie, because I had bought her many sparkly jackets. She still loved clothes. But the unique relationship that she and I shared was one of a kind. I've been in ministry for 40 years, and I've seen many people, but I have never come across somebody so individually unique as she was. When trust is high, communication is very easy. And the minute I met Annie, I loved her. And she loved me. And there's something about somebody who loves you. She called me precious. I didn't deserve it, but I liked it. And all the beautiful things she gave me, and the relationship we had, and I'd call her often, and one day she said, "Would you like to pray?" And I said, "Sure." So she said, "I'll go first." So she began to pray, and I was overwhelmed. She started out with adoration to God, to praise to God, thanksgiving to God, and confession. Her life was open. And then she had supplication, praise, and more adoration, and more thanksgiving, and more praise. And she's the only one I've ever seen that talked about how big God's brain was. She talked about how smart he was. And then it was more praise and adoration and thanksgiving, and she closed. I was breathless, I was speechless, and I hadn't even said a word. I felt like I had been on one of those roller coasters, and then she said, "Now it's your turn to pray." And I realized in that moment how very impoverished and anemic my prayer life was. Little adoration, little thanksgiving, but hers was huge. This little tiny precious person and this huge spirit and love for God. And we began to pray once a day and twice a day. And I so began to rely upon my prayer life with her. And when a day went by and we did not pray together, I felt yucky. And I would get in tight situations. I'd call Aunt Annie, "You pray." And she and Sandy would sit down and pray. And I so needed her prayers. The other thing I remember about Annie was her love of truth. In this room over there, I was teaching a class to the older ladies and interested parties about truth. And one of the things that I was teaching was that it's not good enough to hear the truth. It's not good enough to obey the truth. It's not good enough to confess the truth, because even the devils believe and confess and tremble. But that we, even in our obedience, have to have a deep love for truth, because if we do not, sooner or later some truth comes in our life that we do not like. And we do not like. And as we came out that day, she said to me, she said, "I want to love truth." And she said, "If you see anything in me that gets in the way between me and my God, and me seeing the face of God, I want you to tell me." And I can tell you, there's many leaders in the church who will not take that moral dare to stand in front of the mirror of God and be redressed by Him, to bring every thought captive to Jesus Christ. to tear down strongholds of the devil in their own life and to encourage that example in others. People often ask me, will we know each other in the next life? Well, the Bible assumes that. And actually, Jesus taught that. And I take so much comfort from his example. And I'd like to think about Jesus Christ because that was the one she loved so much. I think about the long walk to Jerusalem. I think about how heavy his heart was. And I think as he went through his mock trial, and of course his supper the night before with his disciples, and his trial, his betrayal, the beatings, and finally the crucifixion. But that wasn't all. After he died, he once for all gave the redeeming blood of eternity, and he redeemed us in heavenly places. And then, if that were not enough, he stormed the hateful enemy's territory, and he broke those hateful gates. And he declared himself to be Lord of lords and King of kings. And he broke the bars of death, and he led captivity captive. And God, with a different kind of power than created the universe, raised him victorious over death itself on that third day. And yet, when he was raised from the grave, did he go back to show himself to Pilate? No. Did he go back to the crowds that screamed Barabbas? No. Did he go back to the ones who crucified him? No. Because I believe that all the time on the way to Jerusalem, through the trial, through the crucifixion, going and entering the Hadean realm, and coming up the other side, I believe that his very deep concern and his very keen specific interest were on his humanly affections that he had left behind. Specifically, his disciples. And that gives me great comfort. From one that I will miss so much. That those who have gone on before us, that have prayed so long and hard with us, now seeing the face of the Father, are still deeply concerned and keenly aware of their human interest, specifically you and me. One of the great scriptures that I will close with is Hebrews, the 12th chapter. It gives me great comfort to read these verses. Therefore, seeing we also are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and sin which so easily ensnares us, and let us, with endurance, run the race that is set before us. Looking to Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is set down on the right hand of God. This is one of the most beautiful passages because it says that we are now surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses that are cheering us on. Can you hear them? Can you hear them? This congregation this year has been very pained with many separations. Virginia, Albert, Carol, Carl, and now Annie, and others. in the arena. And here's the message. The first thing they are telling us is lose the weight. Some of us, that's not just figurative. Lose anything in our life that would entangle us, that would ensnare us from running that race. Annie was the kind of person that said, anything you see, lose the affections of the world, whatever it is, to run the race. And then it goes on to say that whatever we do, we have to keep our eyes focused on where we're headed. Do not listen to those others who are next to you running, the half-hearted, the half-committed, the fearful, the unbelieving, the negative, the naysayers. Don't listen, because if you do listen to them, you will be dragged down. You will be pulled down. You will become discouraged. And you may step out in your lane and be disqualified. Are you listening? Can you hear me? And whatever you do, do not look behind you. Do not look at what might have been, could have been, should have been, would have been, or what has been. It is eternal suicide to try to go forward and run this race with your eyes in the rearview mirror. It will rob you of your peace. It will rob you of your joy. It will discourage you, and you may lose your enemy. And you may drop your target. Look forward. Now her eternal eyes are focusing on the one that she loved so much, Jesus Christ. She sees him with the eyes of reality. We see the same Lord by the eyes of faith. So Annie, I too likely will only say so long. I will not say